What we're going to do is we're going to try to give you a little bit of an internal look at the process as far as it is to get your horse to the sales on these grounds. That starts around January 1st. That's our nomination due date. What you've got to realize is that at that time, we're not just doing the preferred sale, we're doing the select sale, we're doing the July sale in Kentucky, and we're also doing our turf showcase. So we're looking at about 3,000 plus nominations coming in that we're then breaking out into all individual sales. We're going to break it down as far as looking at the nomination process, pedigree review and evaluation, and then the inspection process, and we'll all take it and then we'll open it up to some question and answers. As I said, January 1st is deadline for nominations. As everybody knows, it's dealt with Fasig-Tipton. We are certainly relatively flexible in being able to take those past deadlines. But one of the important things that we like to emphasize is the fact that when we're inspecting regional areas, New York, East Coast, wherever it may be, it's pretty imperative that you try to adhere to deadlines to try to get us that information so we can get you on those schedules and be able to see your horse and see it in its best light. In April is normally when we're through New York. That doesn't change very often because just because of the population of horses and the amount of time that it takes to come through here. After the first of the year and these inspection seasons and schedules are in place, they're always posted on the website. You can always go there, or you can call Fasig-Tipton and talk to a Fasig representative as far as to the date and times when everybody's going to be through your respective area. With that being said, that is predominantly the nomination process. We can certainly reflect back to it. I'm going to lend it to Boyd Browning as far as the pedigree review and how we get to pedigrees and evaluations.
Thanks, Payne. People oftentimes ask, like, what's the formula? What's your grading scale? How exactly do you all do pedigree evaluations and reviews? Unfortunately, we don't have a magic calculation or a magic formula that we apply. No algorithms. No algorithms. Yeah. There's a number of factors that we look at when we're evaluating pedigrees. Probably first and foremost is evaluating the mare quality. How did she perform on the racetrack, and or how has her produce, if it's applicable, performed on the racetrack. We're looking for as much black type as we can kind of assemble in a catalog because that's what buyers want. The buyers are certainly willing to pay for the stronger the pedigree, the more black type, and a more quality black type certainly is a level of influence. We also look at the sire strength. What are the yearling averages and medians for established sires? If it's a new stallion, how did his foals sell last year? If it's a horse that may have been relocated, you kind of look and evaluate both of those factors. You take into consideration to some element the stud fee. If you don't have a whole lot of information, what's the general stud fee range that stallion standing in? And you'll also evaluate the sales history of a particular horse if it's been through a sale as either a weanling or as a short yearling. It's just sometimes it's an additional analysis that might either throw a red flag up to you if something was really, really, really cheap, or it might give you some confidence that it might be really good physical. If it's got a pretty significant sales price as a weanling or as a short yearling, that might give you some indication that it's really likely to be a very good individual. At the end of the day, it's a subjective evaluation. We all try to put our heads together. It's our goal as we start the selection process, and I think it's important for everyone to keep in mind, our desire is to accept horses. If we don't accept your horse, there's a reasonable likelihood that it won't be sold by us. And the one thing that I've been at Fasig-Tipton a long time, I can compute what 5% of zero is, and it's zero. So we inherently are trying to work with the owners, the agents, the nominators, the breeders, to get the horse into the right sale and to get it into the right placement. That's our number one objective, is to get your horse in the proper sale and in a proper venue. So we inherently, you know, we're trying to find the beauty if possible, but understand that in the New York bred sale, we have physical limitations. I mean, we're essentially capped at right around, I mean, 300 horses is really stretching these grounds and putting probably a smidge more pressure on them than we want to. We did one exercise where we put up a tent over there, and I told everybody internally if there was ever a tent there again, they were all fired, including myself. I thought we had diluted the quality, and I was the one who was pushing for the tent, so it was my mistake. But you're trying to balance supply and demand, but we have certainly some limitations on this ability of how many horses we can stable on these grounds in the New York bred sale, and it's right around the 300 number. So it's a balancing act. And when you go inspect 10 horses, you may take 5 at the farm. You don't know if you're going to get all 5 of those horses committed. You don't really have an exact way to track that until your mail contracts and those start coming back in. So there's always a little give and take on our part to try to, you know, at times we'll put horses on an also eligible list until we can evaluate what our numbers are going to be, because one thing we're not going to do is take your horse and then call you and say we're oversupplied, we've got an overcapacity, we've got capacity issues, we're going to have to change our tune and quote unquote unaccept your horse. So we might be a little more stringent at the front end, trying to make sure we give everybody an adequate opportunity, and then add a few horses as we get later on in the process. But it's essentially, it's more art than it is science. We, you know, try to evaluate each and every horse on its merits, and, you know, our desire, our goal is to find the best horses that we can to continue to grow and develop the New York bred sale. Peter and some others get to do most of the inspection work. I'm not generally involved in that process as much. I'm going to let Peter talk a little bit about the actual inspection process when we come onto the farms and how that process and that evaluation is done.
I think as an auction house, when we're going through this process, it's incumbent upon the auction house to serve the market, not necessarily serve ourselves or serve, you know, so we're trying to serve what the market wants and to best serve the seller. So there are certainly certain trends that we follow as well, and you see that in first year, second year, third year sires, and we see drop-offs specifically in the second year sire to the point of like 60% of what they probably would have brought in the first year, knowing going into the third year that it's even going to be trickier than that until the 2-year-old starts showing up. So if we're a little bit more critical, knowing that when we step on a farm, we're going to be a little bit more critical on horses that are going into their second year and third year until they become proven sires. So as one of the things we did want to point out is we're not trying to be critical of each individual horse, but we're just trying to serve the marketplace and what the market's going to desire.
And along those lines, we haven't prejudged that horse. For stallions, when they got their first crop of 2-year-olds that are hitting the racetrack, inevitably 99% of the times there's going to be a pretty dramatic decline in their yearling average in year 2. So that we might be a little harder on those horses. Doesn't mean we don't have confidence in them, doesn't mean we don't think they're going to make it. Statistically speaking, there's going to be a decline in their average price. So that's, we're not prejudging that horse. We're based on historical trends.
Okay, so after the nomination process is all done and it gets into the office, and it's up to Vicki Cooper, which you guys, I'm sure a lot of you dealt with. She puts it on a graph map, and we go regionally. And like Bain said, in New York, it's mostly in April. It used to be a little earlier in April, and this year we tend to go middle to later April because I think it worked out much better because of the weather conditions. I know you guys have different, a lot more problems with weather, longer winters and all that stuff. And what we do is usually go out in teams of 2 or more, mostly in teams of 2. We figure 2 pairs of eyes is a lot better than 1. And in New York, we tend to start in either southern part of New York from Long Island up to Saratoga, or the western part of New York from Buffalo to Saratoga. And since a lot of the farms are in the Saratoga area, that's where we wind up each week. Once we get to the farm, Tom has asked me to kind of tell you what we kind of expect. And you have to understand, this might be the only time we get a chance to look at your horse. So you want to present it as best as you can. In New York, it's a little unique, whereas Kentucky, the farms are so close together, sometimes they have a chance to recheck horses a lot more than we do up here. The farms are spread out so much, we don't have people in the area to come up, to come up and recheck horses. So it's probably the only time you get to showcase your horse. So it would be incumbent on you to make sure we have as good an opportunity to look at your horse, an area that's big enough so we can get in back of the horse or further enough away from the horse to see the overall balance, fairly flat area so we can watch the horse walk, enough light so we can actually see the horse. That's the main thing. We want to get back as far as we can just to look at overall conformation. Our criteria is basically it's all about the horse. And we look at overall balance, we watch them walk, deviations, front end, hind end, hip, shoulder, neck. And then what we do is we take the other factors involved: pedigree, sire power, yearling average, all those different factors. Now we're lucky, in the old days we used to do everything on cards. We had no pedigrees way back. Then we went to cards with the pedigrees on the back. Now we have everything on the iPad. We've developed a program which has really helped us a lot. And it'll give us all the factors. We'll see there all yearling averages. We'll have the pinhook prices if these horses are bought as weanlings. Pinhooked into yearlings, we'll have that. So we have an awful lot of information to help us out, and it's helped us an awful lot. So we take all those factors in effect and then decide whether we think that horse fits in the preferred sale or another one of our sales. And that's about it. I mean, it's not that complicated. And as Boyd said, we're not there, we don't go in there with any preconceived notions. We don't go there to try to turn your horse down. That's the last thing we want to do. And I know a lot of people say that we, discriminate at certain things, but it's about the horse. If the horse fits, that's what we want to do, because we don't make any money if we don't take your horses.
So I'm also trying to learn a lot about this process. So I look at someone like Curlin, and I look at his page, and it's very interesting to me because his mother throws like nothing, 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 nothing. Curlin, 10.5 million, nothing, 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 right? So, but you would look at his mother and go, wow, it's Curlin's mother. But now I could look at another mother, I'll throw out a name, Royal Flush, you may or may not know her. But she's throwing out 200,000, 300,000, 200,000, 200,000. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want the Curlin mother or do I want Royal Flush? Do I want to know that everything that comes out of it is going to get to the racetrack and win a couple 100,000, or do I want to hope that I have Babe Ruth?
The reality of the game we play is most people are looking for Babe Ruth.
Like a Babe Ruth.
I mean, that's just, I'm not,
You're looking for Curlin's
whether
mother.
it makes sense or not. I promise you, I'd rather sell Curlin's dam than Royal Flush's dam. She's going to bring more money in the marketplace. I mean, and that's just straight up, that's just being honest with you.
If our goal here is to increase the size of the fields, why not, since the tent thing did not work, why not extend the NYBreds sale to an extra half day, get more horses in that can be sold, and increase the field sizes?
Well, I'm not sure there's a direct correlation between the number of horses that are sold in this sale and field size. And believe me, you see the race that's going on top of my head between gray hair and no hair. One of the things that I've never been able to, we have yet to figure out a solution for is you can't just add half of a day. We can't just say we're going to sell another 100 horses in the New York bred sale. We're going to add them on to Monday. Let's just say in our current format with 300-ish horses, 150 Saturday night, 150 horses Sunday night. We don't have stalls for that next 100 horses on Monday. If you diminish the quality of the horses that are on offer, the buyers will lose confidence in the sale. And the thing that we continue to see throughout the marketplace, at our sales, at our competitor sales, wherever we happen to, wherever you observe sales, is there's market polarization taking place. And our competition just changed their format for the September sale. And they recreated what they refer to as the Book One, the elite of the elite. The elite of the elite had the highest RNA rate of any North American auction this year. Because we deem it to be elite, or we deem it to be preferred, or we deem it to be select, does not, the buyers don't automatically accept that as a stamp of approval. They continue to evaluate the horses on their own merits. And there's just, if we increase haphazardly or we add horses that don't fit, what that will do will result in those horses not being sold, or those horses bringing a less than acceptable price, and tend to dramatically curtail the positive momentum that this sale and this marketplace has enjoyed in recent years.
Before you do your inspection, if you have a horse that appears to be a nice physical, is it to your advantage or have any influence on the selection process whether vetting has been done on this horse, and to weed out any issues there might be? If there's any chance that that horse might be selected, and then when it's closer to the sale time, find out there then are issues that would preclude him from being the type of horse you want in that sale?
No, because we do not look at the vet work as far as in any part of the process. Now, as you as a breeder and trying to sell back into a select marketplace, I highly encourage screening films to be done in January or February to know what you have, to know if there is something that can be evaluated, that can be fixed or can either be treated, especially if you do have that type of individual that's going back into the market. As we said, what the market now does and where it's paying and where the money is in what the market perceives as the selected offerings, or what they deem as being the most sought after. So what you have to do is you have to try to be able to mitigate anything that's going to work against you, and by being able to do those screening films allows you to know what you have going into that sales season.
So a lot of people say, well, you know, we want to get into the birds for fur sale, but it's horses for courses. I mean, if you have a late fall, and you tend to have more late falls up here in New York because of the weather conditions, mares don't cycle quite as early sometimes because it just doesn't warm up or whatever. And so a lot of these horses, as you know, they change dramatically. I mean, we look at horses in April, and to project what they look like in August, it's not an easy thing to do. And in 30 days, they can change dramatically. So you have a later foal that really needs that extra month or 2 months, and we'd be much better off than going in the August sale, better off in whether it's September or October sale in Maryland or Kentucky, wherever it is. Those extra month or 2 months can make all the difference in the world. And you know, that's what we try to talk to people about that and suggest, you know, what we think is best for to get the most for your horse.
You come to New York in April, and you look at the horses here, and you say, this horse isn't ready for August, he should go in September. At that point, aren't we beyond the entry date for that sale? Where, no?
We usually don't say that horse is ready for September.
Yeah, we don't
Well,
say
I understand
September.
that. I understand that. You said, you know, yeah, we're going to say he's going to do better in this sale, you know, a later sale than an earlier sale. But the entry dates are so much in advance.
Now, that's honestly one of the reasons, one of the common questions we get is, why can't you come to New York later and give our horses a chance to have additional maturity? Well, the reason is because the alternative for many people is our competitor that has a May 1 closing date at Keeneland, frankly. And if we're not going to, I mean, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're going to try to give you
Every opportunity.
every opportunity, and we're going to, and that's one of the reasons that we try to, you know, we'll make 90% of our decisions there on the farm,
Right.
and try to give you right, wrong, or indifferent. We want to give you the best feedback we can as quick as we possibly can to allow you to make whatever decisions that you need to make. And sometimes we'll probably make a mistake because we're trying to get it to you too quickly, but I'd a whole lot rather, I'd rather do that than try to, what we found is that 20 years ago, we'd get back in the office and we'd be trying to evaluate, you know, do you remember this horse? Well, kind of, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
I
it's, we're going to pull the trigger and try to, again, if it doesn't work, so that we don't handcuff, we're never going to handcuff you to try to force you into one of our sales. We love the good. We're the eternal optimist. I promise you. I mean, and we'll write a case. I mean, you know,
I think your question is, if it's a borderline pedigree, are we more willing to take it or not take it? And I would say if we look at the sire and it's something that we feel that will be deemed fashionable in the marketplace, we are more willing to accept that horse than we are to turn it down.
And also, you'll get, let's say somebody nominates 10 horses, and you'll get 2 pedigree turns downs. So we'll come up, and you know, we work with everybody. If they want to show us a horse, say, hey, I think, yeah, I know you turned this down on pedigree, but would you mind taking a look at the horse while we're here? Absolutely, we have no problem. And you know, sometimes we're wrong. Some horses that are turned down on pedigree are absolutely fantastic looking horses.
well, the other thing that does happen occasionally, and it's we're not good enough yet. We don't have a system built in place. If you happen to have a horse that's turned down from pedigree, or you happen to have if you have a significant update in the pedigree, and say, hey, knuckleheads, you were here a week ago, and last Saturday this horse did this accomplished that. Please let us know. Right. Call, email, do something, because we don't have that system in place yet. For every horse that's nominated in our system, we don't have a screening process of race results to get updates on all those horses. So if something positive does happen in one of your pedigrees between like the nomination process and the inspection/selection decision, please let us know that.
And that is a good thing to know, because after horses are nominated, and we do run the pedigrees stay static. They don't change, so they don't automatically update. So if there is a 2-year-old or a stake horse that's come up, we don't automatically know.
Our nomination is not sales specific. We'll have 3,000 yearlings nominated to the Fasig-Tipton selected sales. That'll include the July sale, the New York bred sale, the Saratoga sale, and the turf sale.
Okay.
I want to just reiterate one thing that Peter said that I think is probably as important for the horses that you're trying to get into the New York bred sale as any, and that is that they're only going to look at your horse one time, right? And you know when they say when you're going for a job interview, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. Your horse has one chance to make a good first impression. So if you start 3 days before they're coming to try to get your horse to lead and set up half decent, or come up with some sort of place to show them where they can see him, it's too late. You got to work with these horses, get them to walk aggressively. They don't have to be perfect, but they need to be nutritionally in the shape they need to be in, and they need to be able to be shown to these guys so that you have a decent chance. They don't have to be perfect, but they need to be able to see and get a good idea what they really look like.
And we don't want to go there and turn down horses. That's not what our job is. We want to take horses. We have limits, stall space up here. But we'll work with people, and, you know, that's all we can do. The worst thing, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I went to a couple of places, and there's nominated 12 horses, turned everyone down. You know, that doesn't make me feel good. When I walk out of there, I say, you know, I feel bad, because I know you guys put a lot of time, effort, money into your horses. And it's like basically telling somebody, your kids are bad. Well, nobody wants to hear that. You know, those horses are your horses. You love them to death. You put a lot of time, money, and effort into it. And, you know, so we try to work with you as much as we can.
The worst thing a sales company can do is knowingly, willingly put you in the wrong spot. If we put you in over your head because we feel bad about telling you your horses don't belong, you're going to have a bad experience.
And it's going to cost you.
And you're going to be upset with us and yourself. It's going to be an expensive process. So I'd rather hurt your feelings on the front end and say those horses don't work than say, well, hell, they're really nice people. Let's take 2 for them. And you come here in August and you go home with 2 horses and a bill for about $10,000. You don't have a very good feeling about this sale or about Fasig-Tipton. And that's, we are gonna try to tell you the truth and give you an honest evaluation, whether it's what you want to hear or not. And that's one of the harder things to do, is to be dead straight and say, hey, I just don't think I don't think that horse is going to work. I'd rather tell you that in April and have you be a little bit upset with us than have a bad experience with us in August. And that's our company philosophy. We're always going to try to give you the best advice that we can. Now, we're going to be wrong. We're going to make plenty of mistakes. We're human beings, and horses try to make idiots out of all of us every day. They change, they improve, they go the wrong way, but we're going to try to give you the best feedback and the best opinion that we possibly can.
You know, I don't want you guys to think we're a bunch of pretty Madonnas, that we want everything set up perfect. So, I mean, certain farms, bigger farms, have more access to help, whereas mom and pop, they have to work around their schedule, and we understand that, and we're willing to work with everybody, and we can look through a little dirt, we can look through a little of this, but if you can get to the point where it showcases your horse the best possible that day, that's what you're striving for, and that helps us a lot.
Round of applause for these 3 guys.